What is good, y'all? What is good, y'all? Let me just get everything situated here. Let me get everything situated here with the audio for the show tonight. Got a dope show for y'all tonight, man. We're gonna be examining. I'm gonna pretty much examine. Come on. You're killing me with the ads. I'm gonna pretty much examine the career of Lloyd Banks here tonight because I was listening to a couple excerpts from 50 Cent interviews where he was speaking about the street reputation of Lloyd Banks. He was also speaking about a couple other things we're going to get into. You know, just as we take our whole stroll down the memory lane of what was G Unit, it should be a good show tonight. Make sure you hit the comment sections if you have some of your own personal memories that you want me to, you know, share. You know what I mean? If you I'm sure some of you all have been to a Lloyd Banks concert. Maybe you've even been to 50 Cent and a Lloyd Banks concert because 50 has this weird concept in his mind that Lloyd Banks feels a little bit inferior when it comes to when 50 comes around. What's up? What's up? What's up? Appreciate y'all for tapping in. You know what to do when you tap in here. Hit that like button. Hit that like button when you tap in here. Drop a comment. I'm going to be joined by my co-host in just a few minutes. Let me know when you first came in tune with Lloyd Banks. We all know Banks was pretty much the youngest member of G Unit. It was a trio, you know what I mean? It was actually a trio. 50 Cent had come back after getting dropped from Columbia, and he formed a trio. After 50 Cent had his issues, he came back with a group because 50 had not formed G Unit at the time of Power of the Dollar. So the Power of the Dollar album, that was a solo 50 Cent project. You did not hear Tony Yayo on that album. You did not hear Lloyd Banks on those albums. The first time that when 50 came with G Unit, one of his number one goals was to always promote the future. 50 Cent is the future. Well, 50 Cent made sure that G Unit was the future as well. Yeah, I see a lot of people's first interaction with Lloyd Banks was the Victory freestyle. Legendary. Why? Because it put Lloyd Banks in a class next to Biggie Smalls. They were like, oh, whoa, Lloyd Banks is coming like that. Lloyd Banks really did something to set himself apart from all the freestylers out there, all the spitters out there in the New York City scene that, it was hard to be taken serious. In order to be taken serious, you had to sign with Puff Daddy. In order to be taken serious, you had to sell a bunch of records. You know what I mean? So artists had to do different things. Lloyd Banks was coming under G Unit, freestyled. He did the Victory freestyle, legendary. And Lloyd Banks immediately set himself to apart. People remember Banks for different mixtapes. It's interesting. I read a headline today about Lil Wayne and the Carter albums. And, a lot of people would think that Lil Wayne would love those Carter albums. But according to the headline, Lil Wayne is more in tune with his mixtape projects. Maybe the same could be said for Lloyd Banks. I mean, it's quite a difference. When we look at the Lloyd Banks album releases, he's only had about 4 or 5 albums released, depending on what you want to consider the course of the inevitable. He had The Hunger for More, which came after Beg for Mercy. So he had Beg for Mercy. He had The Hunger for More. He had Rotten Apple. Then he had Terminate on Sight. Terminate on Sight was 2008. And then in 2009, he actually released the album The Hunger for More 2. They actually decided to go back and call it The Hunger for More 2. And that was propelled by the major single with Juelz Santana, Beamer Benz or Bentley. Lloyd Banks earned a whole new gathering of fans with that song, I have to imagine, from just people who were not as in tune with Lloyd Banks, from him coming onto the scene in 2003. A lot of people got in tune with Lloyd Banks in 2003 when he appeared on 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying album on the Don't Push Me record featuring 50 Cent and Eminem. Yeah, and after that point, Eminem actually took a liking to Lloyd Banks. He took a liking to Lloyd Banks to the point where he actually recorded on the Hunger for More on the Warrior remix, the Warrior 2. It was actually the sequel. Yeah, it wasn't the remix. It was actually the sequel, right, you guys? So yeah, Eminem took a major liking to Lloyd Banks. Even Kanye West took a liking to Lloyd Banks. You know what I mean? Lloyd Banks really attracted all the attention of all these different groups throughout his career, as you see with his what was that, his third or fourth album. Yeah, I think he's only actually had 3 solo albums between the Rotten Apple and the Hunger for More albums. And then of course, we have the Course of the Inevitable albums now that he's broken away from G Unit. And yeah, man, as soon as a major record label actually gets behind Lloyd Banks, as soon as a major label gets behind Lloyd, it's going to be sky's the limit for the man, because then he's going to have a reason to, make records for the clubs again, make records for the radio again. But at this point in time, he's really just showcasing his talent and what he can do. And I respect it. But I mean, I would like a few more offerings. You know what I mean? I'd like a few appetizers in between the course. You know what I mean? You need a couple appetizers, but I'm just putting my opinion out there. You know what I mean? Sometimes one album isn't enough per year. And TOS, Terminate on Sight, was actually a G-Unit album. I want to say it released in July of 2008, and it was propelled by the singles of I Like the Way She Do It, but that one really wasn't hitting. So they actually took the mixtape record called Rider Part 2, and they put it on the album. They put it on the TOS album. Yeah, man, the sky is the limit for Lloyd Banks to actually reemerge on his own, because that right now is what Lloyd Banks is trying to do. That's why he stepped aside from G Unit. If Lloyd Banks continued to make this music while under the G Unit imprint, all the other major labels would just look at Lloyd Banks like he was another G Unit artist. So that's why Lloyd Banks has to step aside, and Lloyd Banks actually has to cast his own line, so to speak, and then he's going to have major labels reaching out to him like a Warner Brothers or even a Def Jam. Like at one point, I believe Def Jam was reaching out to Lloyd Banks. You know what I mean? When he had generated all that buzz from Beamer, Benz, or Bentley in, what was that, guys? 2009 or something like that. 2009, something like that. Lloyd Banks had actually come out with the Hunger for More album because of the Beamer, Benz, or Bentley single with Joel Santana being so popular. But he did kind of the same thing that Lil Wayne did when Jay-Z was so interested in Lil Wayne at that certain point in time, when Lil Wayne was about to leave Cash Money. Do you all remember? And it was all about to be over for Birdman. It was all about to be over for Birdman if Jay-Z signed Lil Wayne at that point in time. But no, Lil Wayne stayed, and Lloyd Banks, instead of moving on to potentially good music, potentially Def Jam, hell, Lloyd Banks probably could have picked any label he wanted to at that point in time. But you know what Banks did? Banks chose loyalty, and I believe he stayed with the G Unit imprint. And I think G Unit had it. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I could look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure that it dropped on EMI, if I'm not mistaken. The Hunger for More 2, HFM2 was the acronym for that album. I like the album. It had I Don't Deserve You on there with Jeremiah. Jeremiah just had not blossomed at that point in time. Jeremiah just wasn't all the way there as the big sensation that he would later become. Even though he had the song Birthday Sex out, he still wasn't the major success that he would become when he started working with Young Berg, a.k.a. Hitmaker, my guy. Dude really came back. You know what I mean? And I remember interviewing Young Berg when nobody would interview Young Berg. And I really, really appreciate the fact that the industry, guys like Jim Jones and Mano, have actually worked again with Young Berg, aside from everything else he's doing. I remember when I first did the interviews with Young Berg and he was first starting to work with Nicki Minaj, and he was so excited about it. And I was like, damn, yo, this guy's really about to reinvent himself. So I was appreciative to him having me to his dope ass spot in Miami. You know what I mean? That's when I was in Miami doing all types of interviews, and Young Berg and me did a dope couple interviews. My guy said all of the G Unit beef threw Lloyd Banks off. No, nah, man. Lloyd Banks, Lloyd Banks excelled in the G Unit beef. I remember at one point he put out the song called Officer Ricky, and I believe that song was on iTunes. Lloyd Banks came out and slayed Rick Ross on track. Lloyd Banks is legendary for his Officer Ricky track. Or what was it called? Officer Down? Yeah, so Lloyd Banks actually did some great stuff when it came to the G Unit beefs. Now as far as his albums, the problem could have been the fact that he used the same single from The Hunger for More to Rotten Apple. That could have been the issue. A lot of people probably looked at the fact that he had On Fire on the first album, and then he on the second album he had Hands Up. Now let's look at the realistic facts of this, guys. What did Lloyd Banks have to support On Fire? He had a record called I'm So Fly. He had Warrior. On the second album, Rotten Apple, he had Cake. Okay, I like Cake a real lot. Cake was dope. He had Cake, which was the street record, much like Warrior, but he had no I'm So Fly. He had no I'm So Fly, and I'm So Fly was pretty much his dopest solo cut. And then he had Karma on that record, and Help with Carrie Hilson was a bit of a flop. I don't know why. Maybe it was similar to, Jeremiah. Maybe Carrie Hilson just hadn't experienced her level of success at that point in time. Maybe she just hadn't experienced the level of success at that point in time. Lloyd Banks was working with Carrie Hilson just a little bit early. So 50 Cent had some crazy statements that I heard today when I was listening on some YouTube shorts. So 50 said, 50 was talking about Tony Yayo's issues. 50 said Tony Yayo's issues were a little different. Like Banks, Yayo was from my neighborhood. But unlike Banks, he didn't stay on the stoop. 50, speaking on Yayo, would go on to say he was very much in the streets and running into as much action as he could. Yayo was wild from the day I met him. In our world, it was a temperament that served him well. We all know that Tony Yayo was locked up during the beginning of G Unit's success. Yayo was around long enough to make sure that his name was remembered. I mean, you look what they did for the Beg for Mercy album. They literally put a mural up on the album, and they had 2 cuts. Yeah, they had 2 cuts with Tony Yayo on it. They actually had 2 cuts with Tony Yayo on it. The hell was that sound? What the hell was that? Was there a glitch? Everything should be good here for the sound. Top of that, oh shoot. Yeah, drop some super chats, y'all, if you want to support the channel. I'm going to be joined by my special guest pretty soon, but we got a lit conversation tonight. I was just, looking at some things on YouTube and decided I wanted to talk on this topic. It was interesting to me how 50 compared Banks and Yayo. And so I was like, you know what, man? I'm going to go in and I'm going to find some interesting takes. Like we all know the thing where 50 went off on Banks for being lazy. And then there's another take I'm going to be looking at tonight where Big Boy, salute to Big Boy, had actually asked 50 about his relationship with Banks, where 50 just had some crazy stuff to say, you guys. So I'm just going to go over it tonight. What's going on, Kat? Appreciate you for tapping in tonight. When you tap in here, make sure to hit that like button. What Lloyd Banks album were you talking about, Jeffa? Let me know which album. Were you talking about the last Course of the Inevitable album, or were you talking about the last mainstream Lloyd Banks album, The Hunger for More 2, that was supported by the Beamer Benz or Bentley joint? Definitely appreciate everybody tapping in tonight. Got a hot topic for y'all. This is something that we all grew up on. So, I know we love discussing it, hearing thoughts on it, and pretty much reminiscing on the way that hip hop has taken shape over the years. So 50 said about Yayo, he was very much in the streets and running into as much action as he could. Yayo was wild from the day I met him. So right there, it's like, yo, what? So Yayo's running wild. Yayo's just running wild. Smurf was running wild. You kicked Smurf out the group. Yayo's running wild. It's cool, but I get it. I get it, because if you listen to Yayo back in the day, you just thought that Yayo was going to be the next coming of 50 Cent. I'm just going to be real. If you were really listening, and with the story that Tony Yayo had, it legitimately looked like Tony Yayo was the next coming of 50 Cent. Yayo came out of jail. He had the perfect story. He had the Eminem endorsement. Shit. He had Eminem on the album producing a single. Obi Trice was on that single as well. Salute to Obi Trice. He did some numbers when he came out with his Cheers album. And yeah, he was 50 Cent's label mate. Most of you probably do remember Obi Trice was 50's label mate on Shady Records. I'll say Lloyd Banks was not my favorite member of G Unit, but you cannot deny the impact that Lloyd Banks had. And we're going to discuss that tonight. We're going to discuss the impact that Lloyd Banks had tonight, being the first G Unit artist to ever drop an album, come out, sell 440,000 units in the United States. I had read numbers that he sold 530,000 plus units outside for the whole country, for the whole world. 530,000 units Lloyd Banks pushed. That's making 500,000 people get off their ass, go to a store, and buy your album. That's what Lloyd Banks did in 1 week. He did that in a 7-day period. I'm not talking about iTunes. I'm not talking about streaming. I'm talking about literally getting up and make people go out and buy a physical copy of your album. No, Lloyd Banks was not a part of Slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse moved 75,000 units. They got 75,000 people to get up and buy their album. Now let's do the comparison to Lloyd Banks. Do I need to get a graphic up here with a graph that shows you how much more 500,000 is than 75,000? Lloyd Banks did major units his first week, man, and I was majorly impressed with it. I was like, wow, Lloyd Banks just moved a ton of records. He's the next big thing. It's true. Lloyd Banks is really the next big thing. 50's got his next big artist. But let me ask you guys in the chat, do you think that Lloyd Banks moved those units because of 50 Cent? Did he move those units because of 50 Cent, you guys, because of the hype of 50 Cent? I'm going to actually ask you guys in a poll. Did Lloyd Banks move 400K because of 50's hype? I want you guys to all hit the chat and let me know, because soon after that, not really soon, 6 months after that, the game would drop. January 2005, and he would move you guys 580,000 units. 580,000 units. He went 5 times platinum. The documentary. G Unit was supposed to be the biggest label up and running, you guys. 50 Cent should have had a juggernaut record label. His label legitimately could have been bigger than Aftermath. So, but the reality is, you guys, it was Young Buck who came after that. 50 Cent, we're going to go over it tonight a little bit, but 50 Cent actually skipped over. He skipped over Young Buck because 50, after Get Rich or Die Trying, took credit for Beg for Mercy, The Hunger for More, and the documentary. But in reality, it was the Beg for Mercy album that dropped in November. It was Lloyd Banks' album that followed in July. Young Buck's album came in about September. And then the Games album came in January. But Young Buck's album only moved barely 1 million units overall. Or barely. No, it moved like 1.5 to 2 million. It moved like 1.5. He only did 260,000 first week, though. So 50 wasn't all that hype about it. But you know what, Fifth? In all honesty, all you did was come at the beginning of the record of Young Buck's joint when they were ringing the bells and getting ready to set the record off. I'm about to be joined by my special co-host. Let me check how y'all are feeling in the poll. Did you think Lloyd Banks moved 400K because of 50's hype? I'm asking everybody in the chat right now. I'm asking y'all in the chat. I need y'all to vote in the chat right now. I'm about to bring my co-host in here. I guess my guy is ready. What up?
Mikey T. What's up, bro? What's going on with you?
Twiz, hopefully we'll get into it later, but I'm going to ask you right off the bat because it's the poll in the chat. Did Lloyd Banks move 400K because of 50's hype?
50 played a role in it, but overall, he's still a great artist. You know what I mean? His, he was known for the punches and all that. A good rapper is a good rapper. 50 could have co-signed 10 other rappers that wasn't talented. It don't mean that the people would gravitate to them. So I think definitely 50 co-signed brought the attention to Banks, but I think Banks carried it properly after him getting the attention.
But what is good, Twiz? Appreciate you tapping in tonight, man. How you doing, bro?
Chilling, man. Definitely, man. Life is good, man. I can't complain. You know what I'm saying? I'm here breathing. You dig what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Everything all good. How you feeling, Mikey? What's up with you?
I'm good, bro. I'm good, man. I just wanted to talk about this because I ran into a couple clips. I was flipping through on the YouTube shorts. So we're gonna get into it all tonight, man.
Okay.
Anything to say about Easy the Block Captain and Reed Dollars, though, before we get into everything?
Oh, definitely. And first and foremost, man, I can't see y'all in the comments, man, but I know y'all in there. Shout out to the chat. Much love and respect to everybody. Y'all know how we carry it, man. It's Report Card Radio Live Familiar. Only one way from here, and that's up. Now, speaking of the Reed and Easy, the Block Captain, we got two different generations of rap, battle rap, however you want to stamp it, because Reed didn't just battle rap, he rapped also. He was tearing them DVDs up. He came up in Gladiator School where that was a part of rapping. Easy the Block Captain, he came and jumped straight off the porch and got straight into battle rap and dominated it. I think it's a very, very good look. It's just an unfortunate situation due to the circumstances as far as the issues that Easy is dealing with on top of everything. You know what I'm saying? But I guess that's just part of, becoming great. But it was a good John, and I have to say that this was one of the most debatable battles that Easy the Block Captain has had, as far as personals and
But you said
angles, because
this was one of the easiest battles Easy the Block Captain has had?
No, one of the most debatable battles
Oh,
that Easy
debatable.
the Block Captain had because um Reed was coming with personals, but not they wasn't too personal, but it was more like, talking to the streets of Philly, as far as and I had kind of called it because I had actually did a live like a couple weeks ago, way before the battle started, and I said that Reed was going to do that angle where it's like Easy, you popped out of nowhere. I knew that was going to be one of his ankles. Like, we didn't see you when we was coming up. You know what I mean? But Easy being as great as he is, and with the craft of battle rap, it didn't stick too much, but it stuck enough because it woke the people up. So it was a good job, man. It was great for the culture. It was even more great for the city of Philly. It was a lot of light shed, and I'm just, I can't wait to see what's, coming in the future because I know Easy is cooking up. And shout out to him to not only be a part of the card, but for him to be able to set the event up. So it definitely was a good job, man.
That's what's up. That's good to hear, man. I'm looking forward to checking that out as well as K
hmm
Walker's battle with Riggs.
Facts. I heard that. I heard Walker and Riggs drink was, and I had heard clips of it, but I heard Riggs and K Walker. I heard that was like the biggest dog fight of the night as far as like it's like a 50-50. Some people, you know what I'm saying, they was going with both sides and things of that nature. But definitely shout out to Walker, man. You know what I mean? Walker, good boy, man.
I like the way they set that up. So Twiz, I'm listening in, and 50 Cent was saying on this YouTube short, he was saying Tony Yayo's issues were a little different. Like Banks, Yayo was from my neighborhood, but
hmm
unlike Banks, he didn't stay on the stoop. So right off the bat, Twiz, can you break that down for me? The 50 says Banks stayed on the stoop, Yayo didn't. What's going to be the main differences about their characters going from there?
I think when it come to Banks and Yayo, when it come to like the difference between them two is with Yayo and 50 was outside together before rap, before any of that, dealing with real street situations. So when it come to Yayo and 50, they're family. You dig what I'm saying? Like they've been through it. They was broke together. We didn't seem like we spoke on. If y'all ain't check out the blog me and Mikey did speaking on that in the past as far as like interviews that Yayo was speaking on, he was outside with him when 50 was going through it. He was there when, 50 got shot up and things of that nature. And when it comes to like Banks, it was just strictly music. You know what I'm saying? So when you got a group of people and y'all are, what I'm saying, y'all in a rap group and you put somebody on the strength of music, you expect them to perform and strive with the music. You know what I'm saying? Whereas though Yayo ain't gotta be out here, you know what I'm saying, doing platinum albums and stuff like that, going platinum and stuff because it's different with them. Like 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 Banks, I mean like Yayo and 50 is like Jay-Z and Bleak, Jay-Z and Tata, you know what I'm talking about? Like it's different with them. But when it come to Banks, so 50 expected more as far as career wise. So that's what I took out of that.
Damn, that's crazy. So that's like you're saying, Yayo, you're good. You're good, yay. But
hmm
Banks, if you don't make a hit record,
hmm
your ass is out of here.
Facts, facts, and that's what it's about when it come to you dealing with somebody like 50. 50 want people to boss up. 50 is like Pac, where he think 10 stages ahead. You know what I'm saying? So you can't be in a part of his entourage or nothing if you're not a workaholic because 50 himself is a workaholic. It's like, doing business with somebody like Dame Dash. Dame Dash is not about to deal with nobody that's, what I'm talking about, that's not over exceeding the expectations. You know what I mean? So You know what I'm saying? That's what I get out of it.
Yeah. Dame Dash was just too much of a workaholic.
Facts. Facts.
But yeah, so 50 said about Yayo, he was very much in the streets and running into as much action as he could. Yayo was wild from the day I met him. In our world, it was the temperament that served him well. Um, Anything you want to say about that, Twiz, as far as the Yayo's temperament, you know what I mean, being wild back in the day, actually serving him well in their world?
If you're basically somebody that's, let's say for instance, this person get busy. He stand on certain principles. He don't go for nothing. We done heard stories of Supreme coming up to 50 and putting the hand on the back of 50 head and 50 returned it. Where a lot of guys being that young, they respect the OGs and stuff like that. And they don't even play. You know what I'm saying? They will accept whatever the people that's older and that's respected and getting money, whatever they gonna do. Like out New York, out Philly, we say young boy, but like out New York, they be like, that's my little man. Where it is OGs and bosses out there that can definitely just say, that's my little man, and that guy might be a crash test dummy. He might be a pawn, and he's going to accept that. And 50 didn't accept that. So 50 was a boss from the rep and he was active in the streets. So when you are someone in 50 shoes, the people in your circle, you choose them wisely. You got to look for, it's like being a coach, man. It's like being a coach, bro. If you're a coach on a football team, you deal with hundreds and hundreds of kids, but you see that one kid, you like, he got it. He's it. It's like Mike Tyson trainer the original guy that, you know what I'm saying, the older guy that was training him, he knew that Tyson was that guy. And that's the position and how 50 carried it. That's how people in the streets that are of a certain stature, they carry it. They don't want people in their circle that's not him. So he saw potential in Yayo. And Yayo, one thing about Yayo, it's like what's called the 48 laws of power. When did we ever see Yayo try to outshine the master? And I'm not saying nobody else in G Unit did, but he played his role where a lot of people that will come up with you from the rip and a person becomes a millionaire, it's like they expect you to do more. I don't think that Yayo ever expected 50 to do more than what he did for him. And their loyalty and respect for each other is on a whole different level than anybody else from G Unit when it comes to 50.
No, I feel you on that, man. So moving on from there, I want to ask, just in that same topic, so 50 said crazy stuff about Yale, like he wanted to, you know what I mean? He said crazy stuff about Yayo. So why do you think he kept Yayo around for doing all this wild stuff and he kicked Bangum Smurf out of the group?
Because Yayo, Bingham Smurf did what Yayo never did. And that was just, for instance, I'm going to keep it a stack, bro. 50 can go, he can pull up on Report Card Radio right now and say something about Yayo that might not be a good story. You know what I'm saying? When you deal with somebody like Bingham Smurf, where it's like if Bingham Smurf feel like he get rubbed the wrong way, now he gonna go at you. You know what I'm talking about? Like Bingham Smurf, we saw Bingham Smurf speak highly of 50, and then at the same time, we seen Bingham Smurf get upset and try to crush 50.
So 50
My
said,
fault, Mikey. That was my son. I just had to mute it. They be having it, the phones playing. I ain't wanted to pick up no bad audio.
I appreciate that, man. I definitely appreciate that. 50 said he was liable to do anything at any time. and people give him a wide berth because of it. 50 said, at a time, I aided Yayo in being so wild as a crew. We needed that aggressive and unpredictable energy even after we first experienced success. We were still living that lifestyle. We didn't see any reason to change. Is that how you saw it when G Unit was first beginning to blow up?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, 50 ended up being the modern day Tupac. You have to be in this game, especially in this rap game or period when you're doing business and there's wolves involved, you have to be a wolf. You can't be, it's no backing down. You gotta show that what make 50 so great is the same thing that I think that made Pac great was when it's time to sit in them offices, you can put a suit and tie on. You can talk. You can talk as an educated, man. But when it comes to the hood stuff, you great at that too. You know what I mean? And I think that everybody always had an understanding of that. I know it was a while back we had ran a live and you was speaking on about how like Jay-Z pretty much had warned like state property and stuff like that. Like, 50 is coming. So people saw the potential in him from day one. He just was different. You know what I'm saying? But that's what I think made G Unit great. You know what I'm saying? Was people understanding the strength that 50 had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, because Jay-Z they all saw like 50 was not only coming as a rapper, but he was coming with a group of rappers like Jay-Z had, like Diddy had.
Exactly.
Every major artist wanted to have his own now, so Jay-Z was kind of worried as well because he was like, yo, we're the label. Y'all got to work harder. Y'all got to come out and do some things. You know what I mean? Like I was saying the other day, the biggest artist that came off of Rockefeller was definite, or the artist that's still thriving from Rockefeller is Kanye West.
Absolutely. He's the most successful artist that's still standing that came from Rockefeller, bro.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Undeniably, I mean, I guess you could go Beans or Dame would be second, maybe.
Beans, as great as Beans is, he's not considered the stage. And I love Beans. He's one of my favorite rappers, especially if we go and talk, you know what I'm saying? Um, lyrics and things of that nature.
He's
But
got like 5
I,
albums, man.
yeah, but right now Beans is not great. Right now he's not great. He got the love from his fans that loved him back then, but Kanye is still going and
Right.
still, you know what I mean? So
But I was talking
it,
about more so all time. I didn't really
oh
know
yeah,
who to
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
put
yeah,
who
definitely all
above
time.
who. Maybe
Yeah,
there would
definitely
be
all
some
time.
that put Dame above Beanie, and there'd be some that put Beanie above Dame because they would be like, well, Dame had like 10
Well,
artists signed to him.
yeah, well, you can't even put them in the same boat because Dame wasn't no rapper. Dame is definitely one of the greatest. Dame, you got
Entrepreneurs,
yeah, you gotta compare Dame to
movies.
like yeah, you gotta compare Dame to like Diddy and them. And I'm not talking about financially. We know Diddy can, he can use 1,000 out. He can connect $100 bills and use it as a, what I'm saying, as a whatever you call that thing on your shirt while you eating. I mean, he
Oh, he
can
could
do
use
one of
it as
them.
a bib.
Yeah, he can use it as a bib, you know what I'm saying? A handkerchief, whatever you want to say. It's like we know Diddy got great money, but the things that Dame did, he accomplished. It wouldn't be no Jay-Z without Dame, you know what I'm saying? And even with Rockefeller and all of that, even though he
Well,
he might
I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna go there tonight. Are you trying to say that Dame Dash is better than Diddy?
No, I'm not saying he's better than Diddy. He's great like Diddy. Like how so Diddy, okay, so put it like this. Who was the most successful artist out of everybody that Diddy had ever put on? Who do you think the most successful artist was?
I mean, you got Biggie, Mace. You got a ton of
Biggie.
successful artists. You could
I
name
we
7 or
can
8,
name
10
we
successful artists.
we can name a ton, but Biggie is going to overweight everybody's because Biggie didn't have that much time to shine, and his music lives on forever. I can drive around right now. You will hear somebody spinning Biggie. I don't hear too many people spinning Mace, and Mace was a great rapper, but Diddy to Biggie was Dame to Mace. I mean, was Dame to Jay Z. You know what I mean? Jay Z music lives on forever.
Mace
Biggie
is
music lived on
probably
for.
Mace is probably one of the top 50 famous rappers of all time, and that came from Bad Boy. So
And
like all of people all over the world know Mace, but
facts, and he was one of the greats, you know what I'm saying? But the material that Biggie put out was more powerful at that time than damn near anybody. It was like people was just comparing Pac and Big, you know what I
yeah,
mean? When they was
honestly,
still out.
Mace's album sucked. I mean, if Harlem World, Double Up,
I like Harlem World though. I like
uh,
that joint.
Welcome Back, uh,
Welcome back.
I,
Yeah, I wasn't into that when that welcome back and all. Like once he came back, it ain't hit the same. You know what I mean?
well, I didn't
Once he,
appreciate how at the end of Harlem World, him and Puff Daddy were singing on it. Like I didn't appreciate that. I was like, "Are you
I
serious right
think
now?"
that right there to me, it was just showing that you can have fun and people still gonna respect you. I done heard
This
Kiss.
man was known as Murder Mace Twiz,
Yeah,
and he had him
well that
singing. I was
that
I was pissed off.
that song right there, it was like that's an actual song that they, because Diddy was the original remixer, if I'm not mistaken. That was actually remixed. That was an actual real song from back in the day. But
Okay.
I think the song wasn't about that song in particular. I believe it's called "Jealous Guys" or something like that. I don't think that song was put out for people to be like they killing it. I think it was like we rich and we just having fun. Like this that song I think was just to give people a laugh, and I think that's all it was. I don't think that they really put that out there to be like, you know what, we really doing it on this joint. Like
Well, man, I didn't appreciate that on Mace's debut album. Like it really ruined the appeal of Mace to me on that album. And I feel like you could say what you want about Mace leaving for his second album, Double Up, but I think he really turned a lot of people off with Harlem World. But let's get back into it here. Um, so 50 said, at a time I aided Yayo. Oh, we got over that. 50 said that meant we were going to have to be aggressive in taking what was ours. If someone disrespected us or got in our way, our response was to get them out of our way. I've heard this before. I've heard this before. You know, I've done many interviews with Bangum Smurf Twiz. We had always we had always done what we had always done what we had done uh, we had always done it how we wanted, when we
hmm
wanted. That was the attitude that made us hot. Why did we have to change?
facts.
Um, Twiz, what groups would you say that 50 Cent moved out of his way?
Murder Inc. Murder Inc. for sure. Other than Murder Inc., I can't say that he moved Rockefeller out their way, but who knows?
Um,
Who knows? Because at that time when they broke up, 50 was the man, and Jay-Z made it clear that he knew that 50 was coming. It's a possibility that he understood and he saw that the craft that 50 had, where it was like, you know what? Um, Jay-Z always made great music and always kept up with what I'm saying, with like the newer generations. Did Jay-Z get pulled to the side and was like, you know what, music is changing. You know what I mean? We can't count on these freestyles. We can't count on this style of music. But that's a debatable joint right there. But definitely cleared out Murder Inc. And he what he did to Ja Rule was one of like the clearest situations, the clearest examples of a rapper ending someone's career. As great as Ja Rule was, it's like I've never seen a known rapper that clearly ended a great rapper as Ja Rule was at that time career. So that was crazy.
What indication out in Philly did you get that Ja Rule was a great rapper? I mean, me being in Connecticut, I guess you just saw that Ja Rule was all over television, and and then you would also see Ja Rule doing features that made him really hot, like features with Jay-Z, features with Mary J. Blige. You know what I mean? So what was it out in Philly?
It just was his style of music because like we saw how 50 Cent came up. I think overall when it come to music, at that time nobody wasn't messing with Ja Rule like when he was in his bag and with Ashanti and all of them together as a group. I mean, as far as like making hits for everybody, like when we listen to 50, like a woman not gonna be riding around listening to 50 Cent Mini Men, but it did touch the guys that we understood that, you know what I mean? But Ja Rule music touched everybody, you know what I'm saying? I think like 50 fan base came, he did, we're not going to trip. 50 did things like, you know what I'm saying, in the club and stuff like that. So he was definitely versatile and things of that nature. But Ja Rule had a lot of hits, man. We seen it on the verses where you had someone like Fat Joe that underestimated him, and we saw what he did on that stage. So what he did on that stage on the verses, what make a great artist is not only do you got good music, but when you go step on that stage, if you have to go perform and you doing it, the crowd is going crazy. They are pleased. You know what I mean? That's like talking about somebody like Busta Rhymes. You don't hear nobody riding around listening to Busta, not today. But let him go on the tour. The people is going to go crazy. So I don't look at Ja Rule as like a like a like we said Beanie Siegel, like a lyrical monster. Yeah, I mean, but he was great at what he did. So he was definitely a great artist, man.
Wow, that's crazy. I don't even want to ask you who do you consider more successful, Ja Rule or Beanie Siegel?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't want to
That's
do
a
that to you.
that's a good one right there, though. That is a good question. I would have to probably say Ja Rule.
Yeah, Ja Rule had a lot of spotlight, but also I want to ask you, like, you were talking about how 50 shut it down for Ja Rule. Do you think it's possible that Ja Rule's ego shut it down for himself too? Like just the way that he was kind of like he had a big ego, man, and I'm just gonna be real about that. Like his ego was starting to get out of control. Do you think that played a factor in him losing, or are you just gonna give all the credit to 50 Cent?
I don't think it was his ego. I think it's what
You think
happens
he could have
after.
sustained with his ego? He could have
I
still been the most major artist with his ego?
He could have been. I think it would. I think it what counts is what happens after a situation. So what happened was 50 was going off on Ja Rule. Then
Let's not skip him releasing Thug Lovin' with Bobby Brown and Mesmerize, and that
yeah,
album not taking off major in November of 2002. It only
and
moved
that's
like 240,000 units. So that album, if it would have been like, if it would have sold it, if Mesmerize would have sold a million first week, maybe it would have been a little different of story. But he's working with Bobby Brown and doing recycled always on time.
facts. And that was the problem right there is a lot of times you got artists that they got it all, they had it all, and they was lit. And this kind of goes back to I don't want to jump back into what we spoke in the past because these aren't signed rappers, but one thing that Reed has said, I believe, Reed Dollars in that face off, what he said the easy is what makes you great is being like at the top of your, you know what I'm saying, the top of your game, falling, losing it, and building it back up. Now, that was the issue with Ja Rule, where the stuff happened with 50, and then he put out a few joints and it didn't take off, and then he disappeared. So when you got the people that's going around saying, "Oh man, he ended his career," and there's no response, we don't see no type of work that's that mattered after that. You know what I'm saying? Like on some real rap, like when it came to Ja Rule, what did 50 really had to say about Ja Rule? It wasn't like really too much that 50 really had. Like 50 had way more ammo for Rick Ross, but you know what I'm
Well, he
saying? Rick
actually
Ross never stopped.
he got the whole industry to turn their back on Ja Rule as well, but Ja Rule did it to himself by mentioning Busta Rhymes, by mentioning Eminem. He kind of did it to himself.
But he couldn't do it to Rick Ross. We seen Rick Ross. I seen Rick Ross disrespect Nicki Minaj, which Nicki Minaj is a great artist. We seen Rick Ross disrespect Birdman. Birdman, as powerful as he is. We
And
witnessed these
Birdman
things.
and Birdman said he wanted to see him over that, bro. Birdman's like, yo,
Yeah, exactly. Because
Birdman.
you know, Birdman stand on the principles he stand on, but the whole thing is 50 couldn't stop Rick Ross. 50 could still troll him, but I like what I'm trying to say is
Stop
like
him from
50 could,
what? Selling 150,000 copies every time he drops an album?
but he still but 50 is the same way. 50 not gonna sell that many units if you drop an album today or tomorrow. Like ain't nobody listening to 50 Cent right now. People respect 50 off of the shows he putting out and things of that nature. The era of music changed where these young boys they listening to it's a bunch of drill, like the drill rappers and all these new guys. That's the music is dumbed down. Though that's the winning recipe to music right now. There's no lyricists, MCs that's winning right now. You know what I mean? Like Nas can put an album out there tomorrow. Like his joint, as great as he is, how many units will it really sell? Andre 3000. Like what are the units going to sell? And you know it's just a lot different. But the what I'm trying to say is I don't mean like he shut Rick Ross down music wise, but Rick Ross is still maneuvering. Rick Ross is, you know what I'm saying? We didn't see Rick Ross tuck his tail in and disappear. That just, you know what I'm saying? But
Right. He
the
kept on
things
dropping albums.
exactly, and the stuff he was saying to Rick Ross was a lot more personal and factual than it was to Ja Rule. So
And with Ja Rule came out with Wonderful, and it didn't do any units, or it did
yeah,
like 150,000 or whatever it did. It didn't really move too many units. So he kind of felt
what
he kind of felt like it wasn't enough. And then he just moved out of the limelight. And I agree,
so,
he shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
He should have
and
kept on making music regardless, because then when he came back 5 or 6 years later, he didn't sell nothing. He sold like 2,500 units first week or some BS like that.
the problem also that I think that happened with Ja Rule, like you said, he was big headed,
The
and
problem with Ja Rule, Twiz, what are you gonna explain how he could have made it all work here?
yeah, I am because what he lacked of was
This is $100 million problem.
yeah, but what he lacked, but what he lacked in Mikey T, and I feel like you know what I'm saying. This is definitely something that people can agree on is you can't just rely on straight music, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you know how many great rappers that was out before Ja Rule, you know what I'm saying, that were great rappers and that generation of fans love them and then that generation get wiped away and then it's like they don't got nothing. That's what separates 50 and Jay-Z and you know what I'm saying, people like that is that like you gotta do other things, bro. And that's speaking back to Rick Ross, that's what kept him as
Yeah.
afloat as he is. You know what I mean? You can't just be like I'm. I think that Ja Rule was just like he had the world in the palm of his hands and he thought it was going to last forever. When he probably had other opportunities that he didn't take because he was sitting back like I'm the man. Why I got to take that? You know what I'm saying? I don't got to do that business deal. I don't got to do this and do that. So that's just my take on it. You know what I mean? And just because we don't see him active, you know, who knows what he got going on behind the scenes. But
Oh yeah. Ja Rule is still ordering dessert after every dinner. What am I getting for dessert? What am I getting for dessert tonight?
You
You
got
know what I'm saying?
strawberry cheesecake swinging around.
Yeah. This
Man,
guy's getting dessert every night. I mean, when he goes out for dinner and shit like that,
facts.
I'd be following Ja Rule, you know what I mean? Because he gave me an interview back in the day. But
Shout out to Ja Rule.
as far as groups that got shut down by 50, I would say a group because G Unit was a group. I'd have to say something
Hmm.
like D Block to a certain extent got shut down by G Unit because we didn't really see that many D Block albums come out. I mean, even the Styles P album got pushed from Interscope, and then Styles P ended up doing a deal with Koch after that. So that's one of the groups, actual groups, not just like because when you were talking about the Rockefeller, I don't think you were really mentioning state property.
I mean, as a whole group, I mean Rockefeller, including state property, because at the time, all right, think about it. Like when 50 came out, that was the beginning of the downfall of Rockefeller and state property. And we have to remember that that Jay Z sat in that meeting without Dame Dash attendance. So when you talking to somebody like Jay Z and they seen Rockefeller was they had the world in the palm of their hands. So how can we persuade Jay Z to let him know this is the best move to make right here? We need to do this, do this, do that. And I think that someone was in that same meeting and they told Jay Z like, listen, these people that's in control of this music and stuff, they already know who's going to be that. They know who the machine is going to be behind. They understand how the record sales is going to be. So let's just say if Jay Z didn't go in that meeting and he stayed with Rockefeller and he just wanted to be loyal to state property, loyal to the Rockefeller wave, how
Oh,
successful would
Jesus.
Jay Z be today?
Right. So he's going to go back. He's going to be loyal to Beanie Siegel. And we see how everything
Eggs,
has turned out for Beanie Siegel. Now he kept on getting
eggs,
caught up in cases. We see what ended up happening for the Young Guns. Their album really never panned out past the second one. Freeway
exactly.
ended up having to go independent on some BS. But I really believe that's just because his second album, Twiz, was supposed to be co-executive produced by Jay-Z and 50 Cent. Can you imagine how big or how much that would have propelled Freeway for his second
Yeah,
album to be? And he got screwed out of that. I don't agree with that whatsoever. That's detrimental right there. Oskino, I'm not sure if Oskino was as dope back then as he is now because of the fact that you can't really see you couldn't see everything back then, but just
hmm,
being able to see how Oskino puts everything together in 2020, he's one of the dopest members of state property to me.
yeah. Oskino is he's the best hustler in the, you know what I'm saying? He the best hustler out of everybody in state property. He the
He
only
must
person
be.
in
He got Jay-Z to sign him in their first meeting, he told me.
yeah, he the only artist in state property that didn't never just rely on rap. Even when he was rapping with state prop and stuff like Oskito making a lot of money off his art just alone, and he got 4 or 5 other things that he got going on. So, you know, he just was a great hustler at the end of the day. And he also was the only one that was out of state property that was calling out issues that they had behind scenes where the other members of state property, they was just happy to be a part of had a machine behind them. You know what I mean? So I agree with you.
So moving on from there, man, 50 had previously called Lloyd Banks lazy, saying he has it tatted on himself. He said Banks was more content staying on his porch and watching the world from there. Banks wanted things to come to him as opposed to going out and getting them for himself. That's not me trying to assassinate his character. The guy has lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. Uh, he literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. What's your take on this, Twiz? What's your take on 50 Cent throwing this in Lloyd Banks' face, saying that Banks wanted things to come to him?
I think that everything that 50 is saying, I pretty much know for a fact that anything that we hear 50 saying on the media about Banks was already said to Banks directly from 50 Cent. 50 is a workaholic. He got certain people in his camp that's brothers to him. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Yayo is a brother to him. You know what I mean? He's gonna ride with him to the end. Banks don't gotta prove himself. It's a different type of genuine love with him. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's other people that he got genuine love with also that was a part of his circle. And that's never going to change. But like I said, when you're dealing with a workaholic like 50 Cent, listen, if 50 put you on and 50 like, listen, I'll give you a 5 album deal. Don't just focus on giving out 5 fire albums. It's deeper than being a great rapper. Cause Banks is a puncher. He's a great puncher. I give him that. You know what I'm saying? He definitely got them punches. But you have to exceed expectations when you're dealing with somebody like 50 Cent. Mikey T, if just, you know what I'm saying, whatever, just say it's a multi-million-dollar deal on the line, and you like, you know what I'm saying, Twiz, you know what I'm saying, come on, I need you to, you know what I'm saying, this is your role in this. You might be a co-host, you might be that. I'm not just going to sit there and just co-host, bro. Like, I'm going also, I want you have to bring back to the table. You got to bring back to the table. That's what people don't understand, that Banks is hot, but how many people in New York was hotter than Banks that 50 could have put on? You know what I'm saying? So now it's like you just sitting here, you're rocking with the wave. The spotlight is on you. We done seen people that had machines behind them, and they might not be the greatest artists, but they got the audience. So when you got the audience, it's going to be a portion of people that love you, bro. You can be a person that never rapped a day in your life. Nowadays, you got people that rap that they be like, man, I just started rapping last year. I've been rapping 2 years. When we came up, people been rapping since they was 6, 7, and it really came from here. Nowadays, people is just doing it for the money and stuff like that. It don't come from here. So dealing with somebody like that with 50, you have to exceed expectations. You have to. You can't be a part of a worker, somebody that's a workaholic, and you can't do the bare minimum. If you get signed as a rapper, it's a different damn time, bro. 50 was already telling Banks, like, bro, get more active on Instagram, connect with your fans more. If somebody that put you on have to give you hints and you don't take them hints and do that and add more, then at the end of the day, you just sitting around now. Now you just an extra bill, bro. Real rap. You an extra, but now you not. I put you on. I done made you millions. Now what is you bringing back to the table, bro? It's just like that even in the trap, bro. Like if you in the trap and somebody is fronting you, and once you get on you don't never get on your feet. You just want to keep getting fronted. No, you want to go from getting fronted to spending your own money. You know what I mean?
So let me see where we are here. 50 said he's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time.
Hmm.
I want you to kind of analyze that from what you've seen from Lloyd Banks over the years. How would you say? Would you say that's accurate about Banks kind of be introverted as well as cocky? Is that like is like,
I
so
think
somebody is introverted and cocky? Like, how do those traits mix in your mind?
I think that I didn't really I truthfully when it comes to Banks, up until this last little bit of stuff happened, as far as it's a clear obvious disagreement with both parties. But before any of this, I didn't know what Banks' personality was. I looked at Banks like, he was just an artist. I never got a chance to really hear Banks talk too much. You know what I mean? Banks was never known for talking too much, bro. Like even on the tracks, we didn't we you can hear from the energy on Yayo. Yayo got a big mouth. You know what I'm saying? Pause. But you know what I'm saying? Like Yayo, he he has a certain energy to him. Banks to me, I mean, yeah, Banks is like Banks remind me of like Fab. You dig what I'm saying? Like the difference is Fab is his own artist, but Fab, you don't get into like I can't tell you what Fab life like. I can't tell you what Banks life like. You know what I'm talking about? Like they are great rappers, but
Good
it's
point.
just that. You know what I mean? But when it comes to somebody like 50-50, when you're really dealing with somebody, it's no cameras involved and you talking to them, and you know a person personality. So I think 50, not I think, but I know that 50 is just talking about exactly what he experienced from their friendship, from their whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Partnership, whatever.
Yeah, so being cocky and introverted, it's like, yo, I'm not even gonna come out the house. I'm just gonna sit in the house and deny you from a text message. You know what I
And
mean? I'm not even gonna pick up the phone. I'm not even gonna come to the office. So that's kind of like because 50 is giving these guys like so much money, you know what I mean? From what they could be getting on their own. I mean,
yeah,
going on tour with 50 Cent or go on tour by yourself. You know what I mean? Go on tour by yourself and get 4 or 5,000. Go on tour and be a part of G Unit and get, from what they say, they're
yeah,
breaking off millions of dollars on tour together as the G Unit group.
facts. That's a fact. And when it comes to Banks, also in Banks' defense, I do have to say this: Banks never came into the game wanting to be a boss. He never came into the game wanting to do other things. I also think that 50 Cent had realized that Banks, you are a great rapper, but as years go on, bro, like it's not, like come on now, when you understand the business of it, on the business aspect, it's like, bro, this is not going to be no money funneled in. So you got 50 where it's like 50 want Banks to step it up. Banks, we need more ideas from you. We like you got to do more than just have a hot rap, a hot verse. But Banks is like, I'm a rapper. This is what I do. I'm great at what I do. You know what I
I don't
mean?
want to
So
set up a label. I don't want to have
exactly,
I don't want to have Nicki Minaj and Drake under me. I just want to do raps. Well, Twiz,
exactly.
when he dropped his second album, I was talking about it earlier. So the first album has On Fire, I'm So Fly, Warrior,
Mhm,
Karma. It had the setup record, Smile on Beg for Mercy.
mhm.
Rotten Apple has Hands Up, which is pretty similar to On Fire. It has
Facts.
uh it has Help with Carrie Hilson, which I respected. I really liked how Lloyd Banks was going out there and finding other talent, but I just feel like a lot of
Facts.
people don't know that record actually exists. Do you know what track I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the actual joint though. I don't even remember them joints by names, and I know exactly which one you talking about though.
And then he had Cake, the street single Cake, which was, I think it was a one verse record, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
with 50 on the hook actually. So that was his setup. I don't feel like Lloyd Banks switched anything up in terms of what you're talking about
Mhm.
presenting ideas. I feel like he pretty much presented the same project from Hunger for More to Rotten Apple 2.
I agree. I agree. And it worked for certain people, but it don't work for people that's under an artist. Like picture if, like I spoke with about Fab earlier. Picture if Fab was in Banks' shoes, and we know Fab is hot. Fab would be in the same position as Banks, just happened to be under someone. You know what I mean? Like Banks, it's sad to say, but Banks would have had a longer run if he was never even signed under 50, bro. If he would have been just how it was with like when you see people like Fab, like Fab can drop and it don't miss a lick. You know what I mean? Because it was never nobody over his head. But he's also Fab will never be a Jay-Z. And I feel like Fab is like, bro, Fab is fire. When it come to rapping, bro, like he can rap better than Jay-Z. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but Jay-Z just got everything, you know what I'm saying? He got, he more sharp in more corners than just rapping and putting on a hot freestyle where like just like Kiss, but you know what I'm saying? The Locks, they a group, but they are a genuine group. But like Kiss is another prime example where I never heard nothing that wasn't hot from this guy, but at the same time, it's like the business aspect of things wasn't right. You know what I mean?
So 50 said that Lloyd Banks is the kind of person comfortable being a big fish in a small pond. If Banks was hanging out in a studio with a bunch of unknown MCs, he would be comfortable. But if I showed up, he would be bitter. What do you think about that, Twiz? I'm not sure if I agree with it. He's kind of like saying that Lloyd Banks is comfortable with his success, but would rather not, take his success any further.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said. That's the personal opinion. Now, my thing is this. Like I said, Banks is a rapper. 50 is an entrepreneur. When 50 came in the game, we heard Yayo talk about 50, and 50 was a businessman before he was a rapper, whether it was legal or illegal. He carried it like a businessman. He was more organized with it. Banks is a rapper. Banks came in the first time he saw 50, it was at a show at his school.
Yep. Yep. I guess Lloyd Banks had actually performed before 50 Cent. I believe 50 was going to be
Yeah,
closing that show, so he saw Lloyd Banks that day.
exactly. And at that time, it's just like how a person have who it's like for instance, bro, we're gonna keep it a stack. Let's talk about some of the greats. When Mike Tyson was in one of the juvenile facilities, he witnessed Muhammad Ali come up there and come talk to the kids, and he cried. He talked to Ali and was like, "Listen, man, like you know what I'm saying, he was very upset with the Larry Holmes fight and all of that." And Mike Tyson was nothing but a boxer. Back then, when Tyson was knocking people out in 3 seconds and he was great at what he did, you couldn't tell him to do no movies or nothing like that back then. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't tell him to do nothing like that. But as time go on, he grew into that. It's the same thing with Banks. Banks was a great rapper.
That's an interesting point that SV Twiz is bringing up. And everybody that wants to follow Twiz, all you got to do is go to the description in this video. Just go to the description and click on SV Twiz. That'll bring you to his Instagram if you guys want to tap in with Twiz. He has his own YouTube channel as well where he goes live, talks about different topics. He's from Philly, but he also talks about all types of hip hop topics, man. Definitely appreciate you joining us here tonight, Twiz.
Facts, bro. You know how we carry it, bike. I'm getting out of here, man. You know it's loud in my crib. It's turned up right now. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna tap back in with you, bro.
All right, bro. All right, so SV Twiz, I definitely appreciate you tapping in. So Lloyd Banks actually had responded on track. Lloyd Banks said, when you're effed up, behavior turns irregular quick. Sometimes the pressure overwhelms you when you're the head of the clique. But don't get ahead of yourself. I ain't bending your shit. I ain't bending for shit. Nobody sees the vision until you're successful. Nobody sees the vision until you're successful. Right there, that lyric, Lloyd Banks, you actually were successful. You were very successful at a certain point in time when you dropped the HFM1 album and sold over 400,000 first week. You were very successful and you struck while the iron was hot. I remember at a point in time, I saw an interview where Lloyd Banks said that he had actually done like over 250 shows in a year, something like that. This man was touring so much, you guys. and he was just making so much money. I got to assume he just really got it while the opportunity was hot. And that kind of reminds me exactly what we were just talking about with Mace. With Mace in his debut album, and then he tapped out when Double Up came out. So that's pretty ridiculous to me when a rapper experiences such a high level of success and then they tap out of their rap career, like Lloyd Banks when his first album Hunger for More went crazy, but the Rotten Apple album came out. What happened there? What happened there, Banks? But I don't think that's really where Lloyd Banks's issues started. And I don't think his issues started with 2005, 2006. A lot of people say that the reason the Rotten Apple suffered was because of the fact that the Big Withdrawal got leaked. That's the big rumor, that Lloyd Banks was, hanging out, dropped the album got leaked. I guess it was going to be called The Big Withdrawal. Not really sure how I feel about that follow-up, but in recent weeks, I'm not really sure how I even feel about the Rotten Apple following up the Hunger for More. What sense does that even make for an album to be called Hunger for More and then the Rotten Apple? Didn't make all that much sense to me when I was thinking about it a few weeks ago. So Banks had said, when you're effed up, behavior turns irregular quick. Sometimes the pressure overwhelms you when you're the head of the clique. I mean, on these lyrics, which are these lyrics, I believe they're on the Course of the Inevitable album. G Unit is so far over. G Unit is so far over with that it didn't really, I don't think it really hits 50 Cent here about feeling the pressure over G Unit. I don't think 50 felt too much pressure over the G Unit reunion flopping, when they had brought Kid into the fold and all 5 of them were in the group. That G Unit reunion was kind of a flop. And I think 50 was just doing that for nostalgia. 50 doesn't really rap anymore like that. They actually put out 2 albums, though. They both had sales. But don't get ahead of yourself. Okay, so let me see. Overwhelms you when you're the head of the clique. And as Twiz said, Lloyd Banks never really wanted to be the head of his own clique. And I respect that about Banks. I respect if a man wants to go back to his surroundings, be the big fish in a small pond, and make his music and turn his music into his CEO. Everybody has a different way that they work. Why couldn't 50 just let Lloyd Banks be the guy that he wanted to be? He just wanted so bad to give him the Puff Daddy Mace treatment. I really don't understand it. You know what I mean? But that was them at that point in time. 50 probably felt like if he keeps them close, he'll keep them successful. This lyric, Banks said, your favorites nowhere near me when I'm dedicated. Your favorites nowhere near me when I'm dedicated. When you're dedicated, when you're signed to Interscope Records, when you're getting an advance $750,000 from what we've heard, when you're getting that type of an advance and you're getting that type of a release where you can sell over 500,000 units in a single week, you're supposed to be dedicated every single day of the week. You're supposed to be majorly dedicated. There is no when I'm dedicated. Do you think I'm dedicated to my blog one day of the week? Do you think artists are dedicated to their music one day? No, that's not how this works. Banks said, always humble, usually disciplined, and never hated. Call me quiet, call me lazy. Talent never faded. Yeah, I agree. Lloyd Banks, his talent, it has never faded. But like I said a little bit earlier, the talent needs to be showcased a little bit more than once a year. And, back in the day, back in 2004 and 2005, when they were selling albums in a different way, once a year was good. To have an album once a year was a major thing. Major Ludacris, Ja Rule, all these artists got to release one album every single year. Lloyd Banks, he had to wait every 2 years. Young Buck, longer. That was detrimental to their careers, you guys. And that's one thing that I honestly think hurt Lloyd Banks in the long run. The fact that he had to wait the fact that he had to wait to actually release the album so long. That was crazy to me. But let me see. So back to the lyric. Banks said, "It's frustrating when your grinding ain't appreciated. Should have been dead in my 20s. Shit, at least I made it. I guess I gotta prove myself again." It's one of the questions I was asking myself. Does Lloyd Banks need to prove himself again? Lloyd Banks, Twizzard said something about Lloyd Banks, or not Lloyd Banks, but another artist not being associated with any brands. Fabulous. Fabulous always moved from different labels. Desert Storm, at a point he worked with Jay-Z, moved to another label. Lloyd Banks moving away from 50 Cent, like I said earlier, I hope it actually leads to him getting another major label deal. I hope it leads to him actually getting a deal with a major label because they see what he can do on his own. But I really think he needs to dive back into the old style of the way that he used to release mixtapes in order to promote his albums. Like I said, we need some appetizers to go in between those main courses. You know what I mean? But shit, there's been a lot of artists. I'm not saying to name them the appetizers. A lot of artists that have been doing that. But Lloyd Banks has had a a lot of mixtapes series that he can tap into. I'm just saying he needs to flood the market like he did at one point, unless he's just comfortable and done at this point. But records are not selling the way that they used to. And the boat has been missed for Lloyd Banks to have released albums in 2004, 2005, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, while records were still selling. But does Banks have to prove himself again? He's doing that right now with The Course of the Inevitable. He has 3 out. I think labels should actually see that he could put together albums. It's like independent film. If a major company sees an independent film director put together a movie for a certain budget, they realize what he can do, they're going to slap a major budget on it. So let me see. Banks actually addressed it. He said, "Call me quiet, call me lazy. Talent never faded," because 50 brought up how he tattooed lazy on himself. I mean, it was a nickname. At one point, Lloyd Banks probably didn't know he was going to be a member of G Unit. He didn't know the name. Maybe it was going to be Lazy Lloyd Banks. You know what I mean? Who knows? Maybe it was just going to be Lazy Lloyd. I can't say. You can't determine how somebody's going to market themselves. You know what I mean? But come on, man. The whole lazy thing with Lloyd Banks. How are you going to call a man lazy that did 250 shows in a year? I mean, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't Lloyd Banks that missed the tour of Asia that Young Buck missed when they did the TOS album. And that was in 2008. And so by 2008, Lloyd Banks had already had a solid 5-year industry run with G Unit. I'm just pointing out facts. Um, So I don't know why 50 Cent calls Lloyd Banks lazy when he's obviously seen the drive that Lloyd Banks has had over the years, carting him around all over the world, all over in the jets. And you know what? It's actually embarrassing to the G Unit brand that he would now call Lloyd Banks lazy after everything he's been through with the game, after everything that he's been through with um Young Buck. You know what I mean? I mean, he does some petty stuff. 50 does some petty stuff, like all that alleged stuff of kicking Hot Rod off the stage because he didn't know the Wanksta lyrics, or calling Tony Yayo spoiled milk or something like that, if I got that right. So, but, sometimes you just need to be able, I sympathize with Fifth, because you need to be able to tell the people how you feel. You need to be able to say, you should be able to say whatever the hell you want. Like, yo, I had 250 more shows lined up for you. You realize how much you were going to get paid? That's one of the biggest things that annoys me, especially about sports. When a sports athlete gets, when they get their championships, their rings, and they just want to walk away from the sport, that annoys the hell out of me. It's like, no, or an actor getting an Oscar, and then they want to do all these action movies or these other different types of projects. No, you just won the Oscar. Make some good damn movies. Different stuff like that really annoys me when people want to retire after, getting to a certain extent. It's like, no, you're here now. Do that. So yeah, I've listened to a few of the Lloyd Banks projects. Haven't done any reviews of them though. But one thing I also wanted to point out was 50 Cent taking credit for the documentary album, as well as the Hunger for More album and the Beg for Mercy album. He pretty much said he followed up Get Rich or Die Trying with 3 albums. 50 said, I dropped 3 albums after the album Get Rich. I dropped Beg for Mercy, Lloyd Banks, and Game Solo before I came back with the massacre and sold 10 million. So right there with that, he's trying to tell us that he moved another nearly 15 million units. He's trying to tell us that he moved another 15 million units before even getting into his second solo album. Some people might look at that as a mistake. Interscope wanted 50 to follow up Get Rich or Die Trying with another solo album. Probably could have moved another 10 million units instead of 6. But anyways, 50 wanted to do something real. 50 wanted to put his guys on so he could sell 3 or 4 million units with Banks. So we could put Banks on tour and earn X amount of dollars. So we could build Young Buck and potentially take over the South. So we could get Tony Yayo for a release ready. And then he ended up signing the Game documentary. It just came together so perfectly with Dr. Dre, since Dr. Dre was instrumental in 50 Cent's early career with Eminem. Dr. Dre came back with that that West Coast influence, and it just worked like a charm, because it made 50 Cent that much bigger too, to have all these artists thriving under his brand, with the Game selling 500,000 and Lloyd Banks selling over 400,000 first week. Young Buck coming out underperforming a little bit. Shorty Wanna Ride. Don't I don't remember if Shorty Wanna Ride was out when the album first dropped. They might have had Let Me In, and Let Me In wasn't the strongest single. Why would they not have just have went with Shorty Wanna Ride to get things going? That single became so major. But it's just crazy to me to see 50 taking credit for these albums. We do know he was instrumental in them, though. So I'm glad to see him finally mentioning them. But come on, man. Why do you got to leave out Young Buck's album? Why do you got to leave out Straight Outta Cashville, man? Why didn't he mention Young Buck, you guys? That's what I'm wondering right now. Why didn't 50 mention Young Buck? Nah, Stomp was the third single, bro. Stomp with the Game and Ludacris was actually the third single. So let me see here. Yeah, they both were major albums. Big Boy asked 50 Cent in an interview, what happened with G Unit? 50 said, everyone went into different directions. Some, like Ye, he's going to stay regardless. He's going to be down. That really shows me what Twiz was saying a little bit earlier about, Twiz was saying that 50 kept Yayo close to him while he looked at Lloyd Banks as kind of like an earner. Although Bangum Smurf told me in various interviews outside of my work with him, that Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo were looked at as earners. He said that's how they were looked at. 50 Cent, earlier on, we were talking about it. 50 Cent said Yayo was a wild card. He said Yayo was wild since the day that he met him. Those are allegedly the reasons that 50 kicked Bangum Smurf out of the group. So in reality, that says to me right there that even if Yayo was wild, like Yayo says he was crazy in his early 22 in some of his new interviews. They just had a relationship that compelled 50 Cent to keep him around. Like, yo, I'm going to keep this dude around regardless. I don't give a damn how crazy he is. Yayo is my boy through thick and thin. But 50 said, everyone went into different directions. Oh, yeah, Fifth, everyone went into different directions. Yayo stayed close. Lloyd Banks decided he wanted to release independent albums. Young Buck decided he wanted to release independent albums, started putting them out. G Unit started having them recalled, apparently, allegedly. Young Buck put out a bunch of those 10 albums. Why couldn't 50 take a couple of those albums? You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. Young Buck was producing mass talent. He was producing mass work. I fell back from Young Buck after the Buck the World album. When Buck came out with his third album, he was attempting to come out with his third album. Young Buck wanted to name his third album The Rehab. Why is your album called The Rehab? Can you please spare me of listening to, what are you, on some Eminem shit? You already pissed me off with that Eminem single you did on Buck the World. I was not feeling that. I was not feeling that joint you did. What was it called? Lose My Mind? Or that song pissed me off on Buck the World. That was a damn near perfect album besides that track. That album would probably be an A- to a B+ album, depending on what I rate his female tracks, and the lead single was just trash. So it might be a B+. My guy says that 50 should have fixed that situation with Young Buck. Young Buck had a lot of heat. Young Buck couldn't find the proper single for his second album was the problem. He had Polo the Don. I believe it was Polo the Don who produced Get Buck. But that, again, it was a little bit before Polo the Don's heyday. Just like Lloyd Banks working with Carrie Hilson. I don't get it. Why do A-list artists have to work with artists that haven't made it to the A-list yet? When Lloyd Banks came out and sold 500,000 units, that made him an A-list artist. Young Buck came out, they thought Young Buck was going to flop. They thought Young Buck was going to do like 130,000 units first week on his first album. They thought that was going to be a flop, straight out of Flopville. But no, Straight Outta Cashville sold like 260,000 units. For some reason, I remember it a little bit higher. But apparently that's all it was. Buck actually moved a few units, man. Maybe it was 300 outside the country too. If anybody can get those numbers, that'd be dope. But what I see is 260 when I be looking it up. And I lived through it. So let's be real. Young Buck overcame the odds. And then he did that crazy stunt with Dr. Dre. He actually had a working relationship with Young Jeezy. He had everyone in the South jacking him. No lie. He had everybody in the South jacking him. Pause. And his second album came out. Like I said, the first album was August 2004. The second album was March 2007. They let Young Bucks they let his momentum die down, you guys. They let Young Buck lose his momentum. I just don't understand the business logic. I really don't understand the business logic. 50 Cent had a major label at his disposal. And guys, I'm not talking about Hot Rod and Mary J. Blige tonight. I'm not doing it. I'm not talking about that wasted single tonight. So Big Boy asked 50 about Banks. 50's like, Banks, I don't even know. He couldn't even tell you at any point when you speak to him what the problem is. That's interesting. You want to know why that's interesting? Because I don't think Lloyd Banks has ever done an interview on Big Boy without 50 Cent. Why is that? Why is it that Lloyd Banks can't do any interviews without 50 Cent? Why can't he do any interviews without 50 Cent, you guys? Why can't Lloyd Banks go to Big Boy to promote The Course of the Inevitable? You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, because when you're on 50's schedule, you're probably on 50's schedule, and that's what it is. I remember trying to do interviews. I remember when I was doing my interview with Young Lito, for example. Shout out to Young Lito. The interview did like 100,000 views. And so we're trying to get it together, and he was with Troy Ave. And I was like, yo, so what's good with the interview? He's like, yo, me and Troy Ave are driving through, da-da-da-da-da. We can't stop. Like, what, bro? You're on Troy Ave's time? You're on that bozo's time? We ended up getting the interview in, like I said, after a Troy Ave show. I had gone and checked him. And so yeah, Lito was dope. Lito was dope. Yeah, so everybody could go check out that interview. All you got to do is type in Mikey T Young Lito. He was actually off to the races before Troy Ave pulled some BS and tried to, you know what I mean, drop him from the label. Big Boy said, is there still a G Unit? Is there still a G Unit? If you follow closely, there is a G Unit. And that 50 actually has Uncle Murda on the group. You know what I mean? Uncle Murda, I thought, was putting together his album called Lenny Grant, the Lenny Grant story. I'm looking forward to that. I was really looking forward to Uncle Murda finally getting his fair shot. You know what I mean? But this day and age, selling records, you know what I mean? It's just a whole different thing. You know what I mean? As far as if you're selling the records independently or if you're selling the records with a major label. It's just so much different than it was before. If we would have saw Uncle Murda actually get a shot on G Unit Records, 50 Cent was literally bringing all of his artists through the, all the mainstream platforms. You would see every single artist presented on BET 106 in Park until Tony Yayo did that crazy ass wild shit where he was dissing Fat Joe on the air. And then we never saw it. Well, we saw Tony Yayo back to promote TOS. But if anybody remembers seeing Tony Yayo BET 106 in Park. He was dissing Fat Joe, and they just were not feeling it. But 50 said, yeah, I'm working with Uncle Murda, Tony Yayo. Usually that's the format. 3 of us. Initially it was me, Ye, and Banks. Then they saw Buck coming because Yayo was in jail. So 50 pretty much broke down the whole structure of G Unit there. You know, from what we remember, the G Unit group being greatest group right there, man. Y'all know G Unit was one of the greatest groups. Um, and it really had the potential to be one of the best labels and one of the best groups because I really don't feel like they were able to do what they were supposed to do after Beg for Mercy. In my opinion, it was supposed to the Terminate on Sight album. It was never supposed to be called Terminate on Sight. The album was probably it was supposed to actually be a featured album with Tony Yayo and The Game and Young Buck joining 50 and Banks. I think that's honestly what the second G Unit album was supposed to be. It was going to be classic, you know, but we ultimately didn't get that. In The Game, I don't know. I think The Game cost himself several more platinum plaques because the first G Unit album did like 6 or more million. So, Game, that's your bad, G's. You just cost yourself like being a part of 6 or 7 more million in sales just because you thought you were going to diss everybody in G Unit. So then you end up dissing everybody in G Unit after selling 580,000. Your follow-up album comes out and The Doctor's Advocate and you sell 360,000. The one thing I'll give you about your follow-up album, you got it out a year later. That's what I'll give you about it. You got your album out a year later. I'll give that to you, Game. But you ruined your opportunity to participate in history making events. You possibly could have had a diamond selling album with G Unit. You know how much money that would have been? Wouldn't have took so long to get that beach house. But yeah, man. So 50 said some other things, you know. 50 said he said everything grew to the point where I was able to pick all the artists that I wanted to work with. So instead of doing stuff with them while they were on another label, I would bring them to the label so we benefited from them the whole way. So 50 was basically talking about how that's why he would actually sign a lot of these artists to the label. That's with Mace, Mobb Deep, MOP, these guys. I was Mobb Deep and MOP fans before that. Mace had an impressive portfolio before he started bugging. Yeah, man. So 50 got to do some of his bucket list things, you know, like work with Mobb Deep. I think back then a lot of us were hyped to hear 50 Cent collaborating with Prodigy and Havoc. I know I was like, wow, what a collaboration, them working together. I wish 50 would have actually released Prodigy's solo albums on G Unit. I wish they could have got a better stream of actually releasing the albums. That's what I think the only fault was of G Unit. They didn't have a better label service. You know, Interscope was great at first. They were allegedly giving Yayo and Banks or in Buck hella good. I don't know if Yayo was getting them, but Yayo said his second budget actually, but the first budgets I heard were very much bigger. And so why wouldn't you go with those budgets, you know? But I think it would have served Unit better if they got a label that they could have released more projects on, because ultimately I think that was the downfall of G Unit. So 50 basically said that he brought these groups on. It was interesting to see him try to bring Mace on. You know, like he said, Mace had an outstanding what would seem to be an outstanding portfolio, but it didn't really stick. As I said, I didn't really enjoy any of Mace's 3 albums just because I feel like they watered down Mace way too much on the Harlem World album, you guys. Like, that really disturbed me as a fan. That really actually upset me as a fan, you guys. I'm not even going to lie to y'all. But I want everybody on here to follow me on social media. Let me check out what's going on with the poll right now. So let me see here. Who won the verses? Fat Joe, 55%. Wow. 55% saying Fat Joe won the verses. That's pretty amazing, you guys. That's pretty amazing. Man, I appreciate everybody for tapping into the live stream tonight. wanted to do something a little impromptu for you. You know, I really sometimes if I see a topic and I want to discuss it, I'm just going to jump into the whole thing about it. You know what I mean? I'm just going to jump into the whole thing about it because we pretty much witnessed and watched all of this history take place in front of our eyes. And you know, it's just kind of crazy that 50 is like talking about Lloyd Banks' street credibility as if that even really matters. Like I always looked at Lloyd Banks as an artist in the first place. You know what I mean? Like I looked at Lloyd Banks like he was supposed to be the one that was going to take 50 Cent's place, you know, and I wasn't really so stuck on if he was as bulletproof at, you know, just to use the moniker as they were saying 50 Cent was. I was more concerned if his music was going to stack up to the way that 50's music stacked up. Wanksta, you know what I mean? In the Club, Many Men, 21 Questions. These are all solidified hit records. And before that, I mean, we know Banks had it on the mixtape circuit. And Banks came out with his first album with like 4 or 5 absolute bangers from the introduction of the Beg for Mercy with Smile that they actually filmed a video for. You know, they came out swinging for the fences with Lloyd Banks. Why? One reason, I don't think they thought the game was going to be there. The game's album didn't drop for another 4 months, 5 months. So they were really going heavy with Banks, and they made a hit record. They made a major hit record, man. Salute to Lloyd Banks. I really wish him all the success. I don't think street credibility is what matters, but believe me, Lloyd Banks ain't nothing to mess with. I saw this one video of him at a show, and dude, I guess defended somebody in the crowd, pushed over a security guard, something along those lines. They were saying, I was reading the comments. Lloyd Banks is a good dude. I've seen him in concert and he actually really gives back. Sometimes fans will get annoying. You know what I mean? I'm sure artists got to deal with that all the time. But I want everybody on here to go to the description of this video. Follow me on social media. It's Mikey T _ the movie star. Follow my co-host SV Twiz as well. Share this video. Hit the like of this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the future live videos. We're always having great open topic discussions. So just make sure y'all tap in. Don't miss one of these live videos, man. It's always fun here. And I will catch y'all on the next live video, man. Buck the World's a classic. You damn right, bro. Like I said, B+, A-. That's my actual grade for Buck the World.